The Carolina Panthers are NFC South Division champions for the first time since 2015. Their 8-year playoff drought is finally over. Playoff football returns to Uptown Charlotte next weekend. Let's break it all down right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show here on YouTube, where I am live right now, and you can listen to your favorite podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can listen to this podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. The Atlanta Falcons 19, the New Orleans Saints 17, which means that your Carolina Panthers, for the first time in a decade, since 2015, the first time since 2017, are division champions, and they're headed to the postseason. Take it all in. Take it all in. They had to do it the hardest way possible, but damn it, they did it, man. 8-9, that gets you in. Only in the NFC South, it seems. That is how things can play out. And it had to be this way, right? It couldn't have been the simple way of winning that game against New Orleans back in week 15, even though someone said to me earlier today, do you really believe, considering what we've seen over the last month, that they would have won that game against Tampa after beating the Saints? And honestly, no, considering what we've seen over the last month, but it doesn't really matter now because now they're in the playoffs. They could have made it easy by beating Seattle, even though not really easy considering that the Seahawks are 14-3 and the top seed in the NFC after their win last night against San Francisco. And they could have made it easier by winning yesterday, not rushing for only 1.4 yards per carry, not having a boneheaded flea flicker from the 20 freaking yard line. And yeah, the officials not screwing them over as well. They could have done it the easy way, but it's never going to be easier, right? It's not supposed to be easy, but for the Carolina Panthers especially, do they ever want it to be easy? Nah, they don't. They even said that last Sunday after the loss against Seattle. There wasn't a lot of, frowns and melancholy people in that locker room. Like, yeah, how else would you want it than right here, needing to go on the road against your division rival in Tampa and try to beat them, which, of course, they did not do. They blew it, but here they are, sitting at 8-9 and still in the playoffs, hosting a playoff game likely next Saturday. We'll talk about that here momentarily when the game may be here in Uptown Charlotte. And honestly, I'm just happy for y'all. Truly am. I've been doing this show for the last 5 seasons. The Panthers are 27-58 since I've been hosting this show. That record would not lead you to believe that I would have ever gotten the opportunity to do this show and to do the shows we're going to do this week. And hopefully, we'll see. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, of course, but to do this week talking about a playoff game and getting to go cover a playoff game here in my hometown of Charlotte. So really happy for my hometown. Happy for all of y'all who have been here since the beginning of this show, but also been here as Panther fans for years, whether it's been a couple of seasons, been a decade, been since it was announced that Charlotte was getting a team. I'm happy for all of y'all that have been through the ups and downs, had the deal of David Tepper's BS, finally hiring the right head coach, hiring the right general manager, right executive vice president of football operations, and getting a quarterback who, hell, he's had plenty of issues the last 3 years Bryce Young has. But in that game yesterday, he wasn't the problem. Yeah, the interception, not great, but you got what you needed out of your quarterback, and you've gotten what you need out of your quarterback really over the last month of the season, aside from that game last Sunday against Seattle. He's been good enough for you, and certainly there's still issues that this team has heading into the playoffs, but we'll worry about those as we break down this game throughout the rest of the week. This is all about celebrating, being happy that the Panthers have finally got over the top here in the NFC South and gotten back into the playoffs, but they get in because of a 3-way tiebreaker. I did not want to give any credence to this possible scenario when it was brought up to me a couple of weeks ago. I was more focused on maybe Tampa and Carolina actually being decent teams and getting in at 9-8 or at 10-7 and how the tiebreakers would work out that way. But there was always that distinct possibility that Falcons, led by Kirk Cousins, who I'm pretty sure just played his last game as an Atlanta Falcon, maybe his last game in the NFL this Sunday. There was always a possibility that the Kirk Cousins-led Falcons, with Raheem Morris on the hot seat, could win their final 4 games and set up a 3-way tiebreaker, with Carolina being at 8-9, Tampa at 8-9, and Atlanta at 8-9. I didn't want to believe it. I really didn't. I also didn't really believe that there was any possible way that the Bucs were going to lose to the Quinn Ewers-led Miami Dolphins, and I have been wrong all along the way, and good thing I have been wrong, because I'm wrong plenty of times, of course. But look, this is where they're at. It was a 3-way tiebreaker, all 3 of those teams sitting at 8-9, and it got to division record, which they're all tied at 3-3. Then it came down to head-to-head win percentage among the 3 teams. Carolina, they are 3-1. Tampa is 2-2, and the Falcons are 1-3. And that now allows the Panthers to be NFC South Division champions by way of the tiebreaker. I guess technically they tie for first place, but the team that gets to go play for the Lombardi Trophy here starting this weekend is a team here in Charlotte. So congratulations to all those guys for getting that opportunity. And thank God for the back door. I sat there on Monday and kind of was like annoyed by the fact that the Rams, a team that I've really been gassing up over the last couple of weeks on Locked On NFL, even on this show when we had the crossover episode, that they've just completely fallen apart and they couldn't beat this Falcons team. But it did leave the back door open. I like the stakes of you either get it done or you don't. And when you look at it, if the Panthers are 8-9 and the Bucs are 8-9, and of course Atlanta's 8-9, like, are any of these teams deserving of being in the playoffs? I mean, no, but what does deserve have to do about it? Nothing at all. And here's the thing, like, don't apologize that this team won the division, that your team won the division, and that this team's going to be playing for an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl, which unlikely going to happen. My buddy who covers the Pats texted me saying, see you in San Francisco. I would love for that to be the possibility, Tom, as I mean, New England, they're certainly going to be in a great spot, even though they have a team that hasn't really been in this position, which Carolina hasn't as well. But there are plenty of Super Bowl winners on this roster, especially defensively, that can help them moving forward. Didn't really help them the last month as they kept blowing it, but hey, they're in it. And Nick Scott talked about this in the locker room last night after that loss in Tampa, saying, quote, I could not care less, man. A hat and t-shirt is a hat and t-shirt. This game is all about getting into the dance. Then once you're in the playoffs, anything can happen. Clean slate record doesn't matter. I've seen teams that, quote unquote, have no business being in the playoffs and knock somebody off in the first round. I don't care how I get in. I just want to get in. Well, congratulations, Nick. You're in. And like, he's right. We've seen it so many times, and the home field aspect of it is why we've seen those upsets with teams that shouldn't be in the playoffs. And I guess we can throw Carolina in that category. Well, the last time we could say that about the Panthers 11 years ago, back in 2014, when they were 3-7-1 and then won out to get to 7-9-1 or whatever it was, 7-8-1. Yeah, they won 4 games in a row to get 7-8-1. That was a team that no one felt like should be in the playoffs. And, is the division format, the playoff format, the right format for the NFL? And we heard about that last year when Sam Darnold led Minnesota Vikings, won like 13 games, blew it in week 18, and then they had to go on the road. Well, they had to go down to Arizona because of the wildfires there in Los Angeles. They had to go on the road, couldn't have a home playoff game, and then they lost. And oh, man, that can't be the case. Well, these are the rules, and this is why you don't apologize, because we all knew when the season began what needed to be done to get into the playoffs, and the possibility that there could be a tiebreaker situation like the one that we've had here right now in the NFC South. Did I think this is how it was going to end when the season kicked off? No, I definitely did not, but I'm happy that this, of course, is the result for Carolina getting in this way. And I mean, look, when they were 7-9-1 or 7-8-1, back in 2014, I've got to get my mind wrapped around that. There used to be 16 games, and now we're on like year 4 of 17 games. That season, they won their home playoff game. Now, the Cardinals were down to their third-string quarterback, Ryan Lindley, and that had a lot to do with them winning that game, but also it was a team that was red hot. Had Cam Newton. Remember that guy? Ended up being the MVP of the league the next season. They had Luke. They had TD. They had plenty of talented players on that roster who had gone 12-4 the year prior, and they had that experience. So it was not necessarily surprising that at home in front of a ruckus Bank of America Stadium that they were able to get the job done. And then the next week, they gave Seattle all they could handle. And what do you know? Looking at how it could play out here, if Carolina is able to knock off either the Rams or the 49ers, they go to Seattle. So maybe that's how it plays out. Again, Brock Purdy did suffer a stinger last night in that game. Don't really think that's going to be something that keeps him out next week in the playoffs. That's a banged up team. The Rams, they've been really weird here over the last half of the season. But that could be the opponent for Carolina, depending on how things play out here. Coming at 4:25 Eastern time as the Rams are facing off against the Cardinals, I believe, in LA. But yeah, look, this team blew it multiple times. They blew it against the Saints. They blew it against the Seahawks. They blew it against the Bucs, even though, okay, the Saints game, as I mentioned earlier, do they come back and actually beat Tampa? Based on what we've been seeing, probably not. The Seahawks game, they're 14-3. They didn't blow it. Yes, it was an opportunity where had they won that game, they're in the playoffs, but that's the best team record-wise in the NFL this season. Hard to say they blew it there. Yesterday, yeah, you didn't do a great job. Refs didn't help. Play calling didn't help. Not being able to run the football, which has been a problem the last 8 games, didn't help. That turnover didn't help. We all understand it. But here they are. New season, clean slate, records don't matter. And here's the thing, too. Every game in this league matters. And we're all guilty of thinking, oh, well, they're not going to win this game. Let's just focus on what's going to happen after that. And I certainly did that with the Rams game. I did not think there was any possible way this team was going to beat LA that Sunday, which they were able to do. So every game matters. And it just turned out that this season, the game back in week 3 at home against Atlanta, the game in week 11 down in Atlanta, and the game week 16, a couple weeks ago here in Charlotte against Tampa, those were the games that had overstated importance for Carolina. And this is why they're in the playoffs. They've had their moments where they beat Green Bay, they beat the Rams, and they had their moments where they lost to the Saints twice, and they lost to Arizona. But those 3 games in particular, twice against Atlanta and once against Tampa at home, that's why we're sitting here having this conversation, because they win the tiebreaker with that. Sitting 3-1 head-to-head win percentage against Tampa and Atlanta, sitting at 8-9 and NFC South Division champions, first time in a decade. Soak it in, man. Soak it in. Enjoy it. Celebrate. And I hope everybody can get to that. I mean, not everybody can. Only 73,000 or so seats. But I hope everybody who has the means can get in the stadium and be able to check it out. And I get the frustration last night. You heard in my voice when we talked about it, but we always knew there's still a possibility that we could be turning around less than 24 hours later. 20 hours later, and be able to talk about the Panthers being division champions, and we were able to do that. So who will be the 5 seed? We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Whether you're starting a new routine or jumping into player projections for the first time, trying something new can feel like a challenge, but with PrizePicks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure football matchups every weekend and elite hoops action almost every night, the action never slows down, and PrizePicks lets you stay in control. PrizePicks is the daily fantasy app that makes watching sports even more exciting by letting you build lineups based on player projections. No drafts, no waiting, just pick more or less and play your way. Getting started on PrizePicks is quick and simple. The app is super easy to use. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. The Carolina Panthers are NFC South Division champions for the first time in a decade, going to the playoffs for the first time since 2017 when they lost on the road against New Orleans Saints. We will hear from Dave Canales, not on this show, but we'll hear from him at some point in time later on this afternoon. He was scheduled to meet with the media this morning. That ended up getting pushed back, depending upon how things are going to play out. So 5:15, that's when we're going to hear from Dave. So I'm doing this live, 4:23, 655 of y'all with me right now. Pretty sure that's a record for the amount of people live with me here on YouTube. So thank you to each and every one of you who are tuning in live, who've tuned in live throughout the season or at any point in time. And welcome to all the people who've never tuned in. Smash that subscribe button and check us out throughout the rest of this week and hopefully the weeks beyond, as Panthers are back in the playoffs again for the first time in 8 years. NFC South Division champions, first time in a decade. So who will be the 5 seed for Carolina? Talked about it earlier this week when someone asked me on the mailbag who I preferred. I said Seattle. I ranked it Seattle, LA, and then the 49ers as the last team I wanted to see, just based off of how they played in their last two games, putting up a ton of points against who they beat. It was Chicago. They put up a ton of points, I think, on Sunday night. And in a week prior to that, they were also humming offensively. So I was kind of concerned at looking at what they were doing with Brock Purdy, how well he was playing. And I didn't think that was going to be a team they wanted to see. Well, it turns out they're probably not going to see them at all at this point. It's either going to be still the 49ers or it's going to be the Rams, as the Rams playing this afternoon against Arizona. If the Rams win, they win the tiebreaker for the 5 seed over San Francisco. Green Bay is already locked into the 7 seed. They are not playing their starters today. If they already played, I don't know. I've been pretty laser focused on what's going on down in Atlanta earlier this afternoon. But the Rams, if they win, which Sean McVay, not happy about how things have been playing out in the last couple of weeks. He's playing his starters. I don't know how long he's going to play them, but there's a pretty big difference, in my opinion, of playing the Panthers and playing against either the Eagles in Philadelphia or the Bears in Chicago. Like, if I'm the Rams, I'm ranking it, give me the Panthers, the Bears, and then the Eagles. Because the Bears, Caleb Williams, it'll be his first playoff game. Chicago, the last time they were in the playoffs, it was the double doink. Never forget Cody Parkey, them going on GMA and asking for forgiveness from the nation as if we care. Yeah, that's who I'd be asking for if it's not going to be Carolina, if I'm the Rams. Going to Philadelphia is not what they want to do. Maybe they want to do it again after what happened last year in the snow in the divisional round. What happened back in, I think, like week 3 when they blew that game on the road. But the easier path for them would be coming to Carolina or going to Chicago. So for LA, they're going to try to win this game, rightfully so. You want to build momentum, and you also want to avoid road games in the dead of winter up in Chicago, right on Lake Michigan, or in Philadelphia. Lord knows what the weather will be in either of those places. Where looking at the weather here in uptown Charlotte, if I can pull up the Weather Channel app real quick, the weather next Saturday, 69 degrees and rainy. Oh, come on. Okay, we're going to talk about that momentarily. But 69 degrees and rainy, it looks like next Saturday, 54 and sunny on Sunday. And then Monday will be 48 degrees. Now, that would be a night game if Carolina gets that. So, yeah, I mean, with the Rams, that's a team where not getting be at home. They don't have a home field advantage, but they get to play in a dome. So that would be the 5 seed for Carolina if they win today against Arizona. And then the Niners would get it if the Cardinals rise up like our Falcons did this afternoon, and they're able to beat the Rams. So I'm expecting that LA is coming here to Carolina next week. And the Niners would be probably preferred at this point in time, considering that Brock Purdy, as I mentioned, suffered a stinger last night in that loss. Trent Williams has a hamstring, did not play the last 2 games. Ricky Pearsall was injured. They haven't had Brandon Ayuk all year. Kittle's been dealing with stuff. Tatum Bethune, who's been filling in for Fred Warner, and who's out for the season. Nick Bosa's out for the season. He was in and out of the game last night. Like, that's just a team. And we kept hearing from Troy saying, I don't know how these guys are going to be able to come off of this game and win next week. And for San Francisco, I'm sure they're hoping that they get a Sunday game or they get the game on Monday night. I don't know how that's going to play out for them. Now, when will the game be? I was talking to my buddy who works for Monday Night Football. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. He felt like the NFC South division winner would get that Monday night game. And that's how things have been the last couple of years of Tampa in that Monday night slot. Now, we also were talking about that, believing that whoever won the division would be not sitting at 8-9, that they'd be 10-7, or that they'd be 9-8, and it would actually be a team that people would want to watch in that slot. Now, I think ESPN and the NFL suck by having a Monday night game. It was far better that one year, the only year we had it, where it was 3 games on Saturday, 3 games on Sunday, wall-to-wall football. And it's also worse for fans to have to wait through the weekend, to have to deal with traffic, go to work on Monday. Maybe they take the day off on Tuesday or Monday, I don't know, and have to go to that game. Like, I hate that. Saturday, Sunday, that's where it should be. And I maybe you disagree. I know a lot of people who liked it better that one year where it was 3 games Saturday, 3 games on Sunday. And I'm certainly in that camp, because you're sitting there waiting all freaking day. Now, you may not have to do that this year because the Panthers, it seems, are likely going to take the Houston Texans memorial spot there at 4:30 on Saturday. The Texans, who have continuously won the AFC South, that came to an end today as Jacksonville has won the division. They have owned the slot at 4:30 on Saturdays over the last couple of seasons because, quite frankly, no one cares about the Houston Texans. And yeah, nationally, not a lot of people are that invested in the 8-9 Carolina Panthers either. So that's probably where they're going to play. And I think that game might be like on Peacock or something like that. You'll find out. We'll find out officially later this evening, sometime around Sunday Night Football, whether it's at halftime. Because I guess they can do it at halftime because it would be AFC North winner. One of them is going to host a playoff game. And actually, my buddy who works for Monday Night Football was telling me he's planning on going to the AFC North winner. So Pittsburgh or Baltimore appear to be where they're headed for Monday night. So congrats to ESPN for getting that game if that's what they want. So yeah, that's probably going to be able to be announced in at halftime of the game tonight for them to know that, okay, whoever wins this game, that's where we're going. So the networks, they're going to be choosing who they want at this point in time. I don't know who has priority. I think it based off of who already has the Super Bowl, maybe has the last priority for the wild card round. But again, I don't know. But I'm expecting that Carolina is playing at 4:30 on Saturday, which I think is probably the best. It's better than having to wait until Monday and deal with traffic and deal with work. And like tomorrow, this Monday, the worst day of the year, in my opinion, because we all have to go back to our jobs, whether you love your job or not. Everyone hates it after the holidays. The next week, at least you're back in the swing of things. But yeah, I think you'd rather, as a fan, and anybody would rather just have all day on Saturday, go brunch, tailgate, get hammered, and then go in that game. And if they win, it's only going to be like 7:30, and you're already in Uptown, right off near South End as well. Go out and keep the party going all night long, or at least a reasonable hour to where you can still get back home and it not be too late that evening, depending on what your stamina is. So yeah, I'm thinking 4:30 on Saturday is likely when we're going to see this team play its home playoff game. And I think actually that's probably the best case scenario for all involved here in Charlotte. Can they go on a run? That's going to be a question, maybe, that people are going to ask. I know it's going to be a question that I'm asking right now, and I'm hoping you're asking yourselves. That we're obviously going to talk about today, and we'll probably talk about it at some point in time the rest of the week. Can they go on a run? It's possible, like looking at things with the playoff standings. Seattle, they're locked in as the 1 seed. Carolina's locked in as the 4, and then Green Bay is locked in as the 7. Let's see. So right now, when looking at ESPN, Chicago, who has Detroit this afternoon, if they win, they're the 2 seed. If they lose in Philadelphia, who does Philadelphia have? They have the Commanders. Okay, so that's a game. No Jaden Daniels, Marcus Mariota. Mariota, not Mariota, by the way. If the Eagles win, which I don't know, I think they're playing their starters. If the Eagles win, Bears lose, then the Eagles are the 2 seed. So I feel pretty good about Philly or Chicago taking care of Green Bay. Packers, no Micah Parsons. I think that's just a fraudulent team, honestly. So I'm not feeling good about Green Bay. Now, going to Chicago, maybe, because they have gotten it done before. Now, they lost a couple weeks ago on that Saturday game. That was a great game where DJ Moore got the game-winning touchdown. They lost that game in Chicago, and they barely won in Green Bay. And the Bears, a lot of these guys, DJ included, have no playoff experience at all, and that is something that matters. Green Bay's been in the last couple of seasons, winning in Dallas, and then last year, I forget who they lost. I know they lost last year, but they've been in the last couple of seasons. So that's something you cannot ignore at this point in time of the season. I would think that if Philly gets them, that's going to be an Eagles win at home, because you just don't go to Philly and win those games a lot of times. Chicago, it could be a possibility that happens, but I'm going to take the Bears to win that game if that happens. As far as then Philly against either LA, San Francisco, probably San Francisco. I'm going to take the Eagles, basically, whoever they play. I'm thinking Philly's going to be in there. So in all likelihood, Carolina, if they beat the Rams, which they've already done this season. And I've said this a couple times, when you look back at that Sunday, obviously, what an awesome win for Carolina. I don't expect Matthew Stafford to turn it over 3 times again. You look at that game, the Rams moved the ball up and down the field. There was I think 7 or 8 true drives that they had in that game, and 5 of them, what they scored on, they had the pick 6, they had the fumble, they had the interception as well, thanks to Derek Brown making 2 of those turnovers happen. I don't expect that the Rams are going to give that same kind of piss poor effort again in this playoff game. Maybe they will, because they're not necessarily trending in the right direction. Go back to what happened on Monday night against Atlanta, where they looked just as bad as they look when Carolina beat them. But hey, take it. You'll take it absolutely if you're Carolina. But you know you can beat that team. So it's a possibility at home. It's a team coming from the West Coast. It will be more 1 o'clock standard body clock time than the 10 a.m. wake up or 10 a.m. kickoff that it was for them a couple weeks ago when Carolina played the Rams. So that's maybe a factor. But you know you can beat this team. So there should be no fear of your opponent. I don't think these guys fear anybody. They really shouldn't. You're all in the NFL. You're all getting paid. Like, come on, like that's what kids do. So no, they're not afraid of LA. So it's possible they could beat the Rams. And after that, it's going to Seattle. And why I chose Carolina playing Seattle as my preferred matchup is because Sam Darnold. Now, Sam went out there, did his job on Saturday night. Wasn't necessarily impressive, but when we saw him here, didn't look great. It's going to be the highest pressure game he's ever played in his career next weekend. I guess 2 weekends from now up there in Seattle. It's always a possibility, but that's a great defense. And this team going on the road with no running game. No one happened last time Bryce faced them. No, probably not going to happen. I've been hoping, I've been talking to my friends after all these years hosting this podcast. Again, this team having been 27-58 since I've been doing this, which is the beginning of March of 2021, but the 21 season. Just give me to the playoffs and give me some MLK, man. Give me the MLK weekend. Typically, we're talking about coordinator changes, and I do think we need to talk about that when the season's over. Dave Canales cannot continue to be the play caller, and we're going to find out, I think, this playoffs, why exactly he needs to make a change there as far as he's calling the plays. Ejiro Evero, his contract's up. Let's talk about that at the end of the month, or maybe talk about that in February. Well, end of the month, because coaching cycle is going to be in January, but we're usually talking about head coaching changes and general manager searches and coordinator stuff. Now we get to talk about football. So give me the MLK Panthers. That would be really nice if we get through half the month still talking about football games. I was really, really just not feeling the idea of having to go in there on Monday and talk to the guys about how they blew it and how the season's over and what your plans are and move ahead to the offseason. Let's delay that for at least one more week, and that is absolutely happening. As again, the Panthers are NFC South Division champions for the first time in a decade. They're in the playoffs for the first time in 8 years, and playoff football at long last returns uptown Charlotte this weekend. I'm guessing on Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. And I cannot wait to be in there as someone from the city who grew up going to those games. Just really excited. It's been an honor to do the show with y'all all today and throughout the season, throughout the time I've been doing it. No, this is not me signing off saying I'm done doing the show, but really I don't take this for granted. Really appreciate everybody who's tuned in, all of y'all who've interacted throughout the years, throughout this year. Happy that this is happening. For y'all, for me, for my sanity, everybody's sanity, honestly, and for all those guys in the locker room who I've gotten a chance to talk to, get to know a little bit throughout the season. Going to be a fun week here on Locked On Panthers. Going to maybe switch some things up this week. No good, the bad, and the ugly. That's not going to happen. Mailbag, probably not going to happen. Yes, we'll have keys to victory. Going to try to reach out some people and see if we can get some guests on this week. Kind of mix things up here as the Panthers are headed to the playoffs again for the first time in 8 years, and they're NFC South Division champions for the first time in a decade. But that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe or follow the show for free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and over on Blue Sky at Julian Council, where at some point, when the season's likely over, which will be over soon enough, hopefully not too soon, February soon, hopefully, I'll be back answering your mailbag questions. So DM me at any point in time and send those questions in. Can always potentially use a question you ask me as a topic on the show in the coming week or weeks, seeing how things play out. So go ahead and do that. But as always, be safe, be happy, be whole, and as always, keep pounding. And I'll talk to y'all on Monday or Tuesday or I don't know, sometime soon to continue to react to the Panthers winning the division and prepare for either LA or San Francisco in the wild card round of the NFC side of the NFL playoffs here in the 2025 regular season, but 2026 postseason.